All right, everyone, and we are live. Welcome to this unprecedented, unmissable live stream where we are going to be going over the entire history of human content creation from the very beginning. And we are going to rate priceless works of art, I'm sorry, not art, content being the proper word, according to monetization and community guidelines, and whether we think they passed some YouTube's muster or any tech company's muster, really. So we're going to be talking a lot about art history, and since this is something that this is a project that encompasses all of human history, I thought how fitting it would be to bring on my good friend Stefan Milo. There he is. Say hello. Here he is.
Hello. Hello, Will.
There he is. There he is. And when I had this idea to make you may think this is like any other live stream, just two talking heads on YouTube. You see it every day, right? But this is actually really something that you're going to be telling your grandchildren about, because this is the first live stream in human history to cover the entire history of content creation, and in a sleek 2 hours, we hope. So I think we can do it. When I had this idea, it occurred to me in a dream, actually, probably divine revelation. And I got up, it was like 3:00 in the morning, and I immediately called Stefan and I said, Stefan, I have this idea for a live stream that's going to change the world. Are you in? And he said, what did you say?
Yes,
definitely. He did. So yeah, this is going to be life changing, everybody. So we are going to we'll sort of go over we each picked like 5 pieces of content from across human history that we're going to talk about and rate and give our opinions about. But in the meantime, we're going to answer viewer questions. So we would love to hear from you. So why don't we start? If you're ready, Stefan, why don't we start with one of yours? What do you think?
I was born ready for this conversation.
Oh, good. All right.
There's nothing I love more as a YouTuber than talking about hashtag content.
Hashtag content.
It is hashtag content. Hashtag.
Yes.
All
right. I will add. Skipping ahead here. All right. What are we looking at right here, Stefan?
Let's go back the other way. One more.
This way?
That way. That's the one.
Okay.
So I said to myself, at 3 a.m. when Atun-Shei called me. And when Atun-Shei calls, you answer the phone. That's how it goes down. And I thought to myself, what is content? Hashtag content. And I said to myself, it's curiosity, baby. That's what content is. It's nothing but curiosity.
Nothing but curiosity. Yeah.
And this simple pebble, is it a pebble or is it a cobble? There's a bit of a naming dispute, it seems, behind this rock. But
yeah,
this is maybe the earliest example of a hominin taking an unusual interest in something. So what this is, it's called the Makapanskat cobble or the Makapanskat pebble. You might also find it under. Is it a cobble? Is it a pebble? I can't answer that. And it was found in layers dated to about 3 million years ago, that crucially also contained the remains of Australopiths in South Africa. That's the key detail here. And I don't think any of us can deny that it triggers that sense in us that likes to find faces. It's clearly got 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. Clearly. And there's a bit of a debate about it, because it's not from the cave it was found. We know that much. But there is some argument as to whether it traveled 7 kilometers or 30 kilometers, or maybe that's 7 miles or 30 miles. Not sure whether they were doing metric or not. But it has traveled quite a long distance to this cave in the same layer that Australopiths were found. So the hypothesis is, did an Australopith, a hominin 3-ish million years ago, 2 to 3 million years ago, see this pebble and think, that rocks. I'm going to take it home.
Because it looks like a hominid face.
And I mean, it really looks like a face. There's no way that it doesn't trigger that sense within us that spots faces.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there is a bit of a sort of shrunken head sort of aspect to it. I mean, these. But these were not deliberately made, is what you're telling us. So an Australopithecus, we think, found these rocks, these pebbles, thought that they might have some sort of significance because they have a human face, and brought them home to the cave.
Yeah. Exactly.
Wow,
it's just one rock, just with two photos.
That's fucking awesome. Oh, okay. 2 photos. Why are they different colors?
I don't know. Different lighting. I think the red one, I think his white balance was really off on the camera.
Yeah. Maybe Darth Vader was in the room. With a red lightsaber. That is absolutely fucking fascinating and awesome. So what do we think, Stefan? That's that's all fine. That's all well and good. But what do we think? Is this monetizable? Can we make money off of this content?
100%. That's family-friendly entertainment. There's nothing untoward about it.
No, it's just a face.
It's just a face. Monetizable, relatable, advertiser-friendly. Definitely. Could promote a Skillshare course easy.
Yeah, but market research has shown that African art doesn't usually go down very well in America. Maybe too abstract, too sort of foreign. So that may affect its market value.
Its market value is priceless, man. Every other piece of art in the history of humanity is an imitation of the Makapanskat cobble.
Most I'd pay is $50. All right, let's not go overboard here. No, that was legitimately utterly fascinating, and actually, this does make me kind of want to show. And this is like completely the opposite of what we plan to do, but it does kind of make me want to show the one of the pieces that I picked, which was which it doesn't matter, but I did pick this piece. Maybe it'll be I'll share 6 pieces of art here, and I just have to go into my trash folder real quick to find my write up about it. But why don't you get the ball rolling on this one, Stefan?
Because it's iconic, man. If people that are into their archaeology, they already know what this is. Yeah, it's I'm pretty sure this is a piece of rock art from Blombos Cave in South Africa. Yes. And I imagine it dates to around 90,000 years old.
Yeah, well, I found my little write-up, and according to an article in phys.org, it was discovered in 2011, and you're absolutely right, Blombos Cave on the southern coast of South Africa, like right on the ocean. The pictures were absolutely beautiful. It's a very dramatic-looking cave, with the ocean just, the southern ocean just crashing into the rocks. Looked awesome. The drawing that you can see, which consists of 3 red lines cross-hatched with 6 separate lines, was intentionally drawn on a smooth silkcrete flake about 70 to 90,000 years ago. This predates previous drawing from previously known drawings from Africa, Europe, and Southeast Asia by at least 30,000 years. There is some disagreement among the experts, but these abstract patterns may very well be the first earliest known indication of symbolic thinking in human history.
It's definitely up there. Up there. There is that there was a time in archaeology when we thought that art just exploded onto the scene, like 50,000 years ago, when people in Europe drew those big cave paintings in France, like Lascaux Cave.
Yeah.
But the more we find, the further and further back, like subtle traces of, I don't know what you would call it, art, creativity. The more they go back, which this is really similar to that first image you showed. If you can put up that shell.
Yes. Let's do it. And there it is.
Boom. So these markings on the shell are 540,000 years old.
Holy shit.
This is some real old art. If we consider this art, And it's
content.
Content. It's definitely content. I don't know if it's art, but it's content.
It's content.
Yeah, this is from Java in Indonesia, and dates to about 540,000 years ago when Homo erectus was living down there. And these scratches on the shell seemingly have nothing to do with getting the shell off a rock or getting the food from inside the shell. It looks like they just had a doodle, like a Homo erectus sat there and just doodled a little bit, which is crazy. It is crazy to, like, obviously we are very different now to hominins that lived 500,000 years ago, but all of our creativity came from somewhere at some point.
Yeah.
And when did they start like doing stuff like this? It's so interesting to think about.
Yeah, it is. That is fascinating. And what's even more fascinating is that it's less visible on these shells, but a bit more visible on the Blombus Cave rock here, is that these lines are in fact cross-hatched, and which, if you're thinking what I'm thinking, means hashtag, which is very in with the youth right now. So I think that this is absolutely monetizable. I think we can make a very pretty penny off of this. You run to Twitter, don't walk to Twitter, everybody, and tag this live stream as hashtag Blombus Cave, and we may or may not retweet you. Probably not, but I think this is a winner. I think we can make a lot of money off of this.
For sure.
Yeah. Very advertiser friendly.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So that was unironically super fascinating. Let's answer some viewer questions, Stefan. How about it?
Go for it.
I think a couple have come in. Embrace Historia. Somebody we would both know said to talk smack about the Histocrat, which you don't have to pay me to do that. So the Histocrat, I mean, did you see that flood video? That was like 4 hours long. It was, it was just that one guy's voice, just, is and we see the evolution in Gilgamesh Mesopotamian thought as it is seen in the flood myth, as it changes over time. It's just,
I don't quite know what accent that was, but
that was a flawless Midlands accent, Stefan.
He's from Yorkshire. Well, here's the thing. Here's my smack about the Histocrat.
He is from Yorkshire, you're right. Yeah. Okay.
He claims to be from Yorkshire, but I actually have it on good authority that he's a Londoner. He's the most fairiest of southern fairies, and
my God.
Yorkshire background is just an illusion to make him seem like a bit of an everyman character.
Yeah.
But he is a real Londoner.
He's a London elitist. Yeah. He's one of those. He's going over. He's talking smack about Brexit and going to Earthling Ed's restaurant and eating all the plant-based sausages and just disgusting.
He's actually Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah, who we all know is a communist.
Yeah.
So
topical rap is considering everyone in Britain is asleep right now.
Yeah, exactly. No, everybody in the chat was just like, "Oh, I'm going to bed." But it's good to know that I mean, I'm not surprised you have viewers from across the pond, but considering the shit I'm covering, I'm glad to have Brits. So John Doe, if that is your real name, says, "Where are you on the Shakespeare conspiracies?" They are nonsense. It's a nonsensical conspiracy theory that falls apart if you think about it for 5 minutes.
Is this just the idea that he didn't write his plays?
Yeah. Actually, Ignatius Donnelly, the guy, I made a video about him with David, who you know, and History with Cy, Ignatius Donnelly wrote like 1,000-page book about it, and he's like the big Atlantis guy.
I know,
yeah.
If Ignatius Donnelly writes 1,000 pages on the idea, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, exactly. But Bill Bryson wrote a great, the guy who wrote A Walk in the Woods, and as famously one of the sort of legends of the Appalachian Trail, this guy named Baltimore Jack, who was like kind of a fucking monster, just like, a very far right alcoholic, just like very old fashioned guy. But he one thing that he used to do when he was alive before he drank himself to death was very funny. He used to wear a shirt when he was hiking the Appalachian Trail calling that said Bill Bryson is a candy ass, because Bill Bryson sort of infamously only did like 400 to 700 miles of the Appalachian Trail and then like wrote the definitive book about it, and so, and then he went back
content, man. He was ahead
that
of
is
his time.
that is good content. That is
Yeah.
good content. Nice, low effort, high reward content. That's what we like to see. Got to make that paper. But yeah, so it's sort of was even though it's a great book and Bill Bryson is an amazing author. But where was I going with this? Oh yeah, so Bill Bryson wrote a great book about Shakespeare. It's not even that long. It's like 300 pages or something. And it's very sort of accessible pop history type of stuff. And he like has a whole, like the last third of the book is just demolishing the Shakespeare conspiracy theory. It's great. Okay. Should we move on to, unless I don't see any other questions. So should we move on to our next piece of content here?
Let's do it.
Stefan? All right, great. Let's go back to Stefan's picks. How about this one, Stefan? What can you tell us about this?
Now, this is content. This is straight out of
this is content.
This is straight out of the YouTube playbook. Let me explain what's going on here, because there's a lot going on. So, as you can see, there are some abstract symbols on this cave wall. There's some dots. There's this tower thing, grid thing, and just an unknown symbol on the right-hand side. These
unknown.
Unknown. I don't know what it means. I bet there's a conspiracy out there where it's like it's a helicopter.
It does look a little bit like a spaceship. It also looks like something else. But continue.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to tip in my head sideways. What's interesting about these is that they date to 60-ish thousand years ago, 65,000 years ago from Spain. What's interesting about that date is that we have no evidence for Homo sapiens in Spain at that time. Therefore, this was presumably made by Neanderthals. Which in itself is very interesting, because we don't have much like clear-cut art from them. We used to have none. Now we have some, and they were for sure making art a little bit, but this is probably the most elaborate Neanderthal art that anyone has ever found. And yet, this is what makes it crazy content. As you can see in the grids when they scanned it, now you're right, Kyle Moose, this is content. There are like anatomically accurate depictions of animals. We only know that Homo sapiens have done that. So, this is the hypothesis. 65,000 years ago, Neanderthals made this artwork. Then, about 20,000 years later, a Homo sapien entered the cave and drew some pictures of animals in the squares.
Interesting.
So, it's a reaction video. It's as close to a reaction video as Paleolithic Europe can get.
Nice.
A Homo sapien saw artwork by a Neanderthal and reacted to it with what looks like
reacted to it accordingly
and a deer's head.
I mean, well, that's fascinating, because you definitely can see like two very distinct hands at work here, and one is much more delicate than the other. Now, I don't want to necessarily like stereotype Neanderthals that way, because obviously, famously, they've been long regarded as these brutish, thuggy hominids, but all the recent evidence suggests that they were highly intelligent and all that. But yeah, I mean, it does, now that you mention it, it does really look pretty unmistakably like two very different art styles.
Yeah.
Content styles, rather.
Yeah. And
so,
it could be that Neanderthal drew these animals, but if that is the case, it is really the only example we've ever found of that, whereas we have lots of examples of Homo sapiens doing this. Maybe they can refine the dating and test the different parts of it.
Yeah.
But
what's this piece of content on the side, that sort of weird little symbol? Do we know?
We have no idea. We have no idea. Open to
Mm.
interpretation. I mean,
Yeah. I
I
mean, if
just
I had to
don't know.
guess, probably it is from the written language of Star Wars. You know how, when you see the on the bar in Attack of the Clones or whatever, it has like that's
Yeah,
what it sort of looks like to me. And
it's
if I had to guess, I'd say
if you
that would be
tilt your head on
definitely
the
the right
side, it
answer.
sort of looks like a bird with a funny hat on.
Oh yeah, it does look like a bird with a funny hat on. I mean, that's definitely. Is this pre hats? Surely not.
Nah,
Surely hats
I mean, we don't know when the hat, really hit the scene,
was
but I
invented.
would bet
Yeah.
this is not pre-hat. I would bet that as soon as humans lived, like any human, like even Homo erectus, like 2-ish million years ago when they left Africa and started living in environments that dropped below freezing, I bet the hat was invented on day one of living in that environment.
Yeah. You're probably right. Because I mean, there's so much that's lost, so much heat that's lost out of the top of your head. I think you'd immediately just throw a piece of skin over that and go.
Exactly. Yeah.
Another piece of invaluable content, the hat.
Yeah.
So
next live stream, hat deep dive.
The hat. So all right. So what do we think? Does this I'm going to venture to say that this piece of content violates the community guidelines of several major social media websites. What do you think?
Well, fair
and
use
copyright,
is so
copyright,
ambiguous. I mean,
yeah, exactly. I think
it really has to be tested in court. There is no standard definition of fair use.
Yeah.
Has the Homo sapien really created something different to the original Neanderthal piece? Hard to say.
Yeah.
Hard to say. It's really for the judge to decide.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it really does seem very ambiguous, but I think, personally, I think that Homo sapien probably should have known better, to be honest. I don't think it's very classy to sort of just like leech off of somebody else's content like that.
Well, saying that, copyright does expire, and
that's
20,000 years difference in that expiration date. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Mickey Mouse will still be copyright in 20,000 years. I predict.
Well, and you say yourself, Stefan, in so many of your videos that like so many of these prehistoric cultures and peoples are just unknowable, right? Like we can't know how they thought about the world, what gods they worshipped, what sort of family structure they had, what things that they thought was sacred or taboo, or just their, we can't know anything about these cultures. So how can we possibly know their stance on copyright law and what copyright laws they had on the books at the time?
It's true.
I think it's just something that that we just will never know. Maybe we can get some, we should get a lawyer in here to really decide this, but
I wouldn't appreciate it. If I went to all that effort to draw a sideways bird with a funny hat on, and someone was like, "Hey, I'm gonna draw a pig bum next to it," I wouldn't appreciate it, man. That would take a lot of effort.
That does look like it took a lot of effort.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
And all those little dots, one by one—that's an hour's work for sure.
Yeah, for sure. At least an hour. So we got a couple more donations here. Thank you, Tim. And Michael asks, which historical figure would run the most interesting YouTube channel, in our opinion? What do you think, Stefan?
Good question. I don't know. I am a sucker for all dating shows. So what I don't know if Casanova is cancelable in 2022. I imagine he's extremely cancelable.
Oh yeah.
But
without
I would love a figure from history with non-cancelable romantic affairs to have a YouTube channel, and I would suck up all that gossip. I would drink it down.
That would be some pretty hot goss. Actually, somebody in the chat got my answer. Benjamin Franklin.
Why didn't he have a few affairs? Wasn't he a bit of a spicy boy?
Yes, he was a very spicy boy. Well, I think as far as YouTube channel, I mean, the man was sassy as fuck, and also certainly and just very incisive and witty, and just over the course of his entire life, really had some very, all of his pamphlets and all of his he made a lot of kind of refutations to other people and things that would make for amazing content, like about how, just like this YouTuber is a terrible person. He would excel at that kind of thing. And also very woke for the time, very woke for the time.
Yeah. They also, as an American in London, he could do lots of things like British ship's biscuits versus Yankee ship's biscuits.
Yeah. Lost across the pond. Yeah. But what did the British, do? Yeah, precisely. What kind of lead makeup do the British use in their ladies? Fashions. Yeah.
British versus American lard.
Yeah. Hot Creamy Fart said something that I never want to think about. Andrew Jackson's political channel would be fun. No, it would not be fun, and you just brought us all down. Hot Creamy Fart. And that's not funny, and neither is your username. I like how the fart is creamy. That's a pretty good one. Okay, here, actually, speaking of Hot Creamy Fart, they ask, this is a good question. What mediums were used in cave art? Coal, blood? What did they use to paint it? Do you know?
I imagine all the ones we've seen today are produced by ochre, which is a red pigment. It's basically a rock, clayey rock that can easily be ground down into a fine powder, which would have probably been mixed with like animal fat to make a paint, or just your own spit to make a paint. But charcoal was definitely used as well.
Yeah.
So
kind of like in Brokeback Mountain, you just like that.
Yeah. That's not monetizable content. But interesting one with charcoal is obviously we don't have anyone's skin from that time period. We have all this cave art, but what were people doing on their skin? Were they painting themselves? Were they, creating tattoos? There are lots of like Paleolithic figures where they have like deliberately made markings on their bodies. Like the artist deliberately chose to put markings on their bodies. And so were they all like tatted up as well? It's an interesting thing. Again, unless we somehow find their skin. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know what the oldest preserved skin is.
I mean, surely there's got to be a mummy somewhere, right? Like, surely.
Tutsi is like the oldest tattoo we found so far, and that's like at least like 5,000 years old. And so, and that's basically.
Is that the like really badass Scythian woman, or the like with the
Scythians had tattoos as well? They're definitely not as old as Urtzi, as far as I'm aware. But there could be ones that I'm not aware of in that region that also are tatted.
Sure.
Tatted up.
No, you're probably right. I literally, when it comes to prehistory, I find it hugely fascinating, but I have no idea what I'm talking about. So I am repeating half remembered shit.
I think Scythian tattoos
I watched in one of your
like
videos or whatever.
But we are going to talk about the Scythians later with some content, with some hashtag.
Oh, cool.
Content.
Oh, good. With some hot, juicy content. Great.
Yeah.
And Kyle again coming in. I would want a historical YouTube channel run by Henry VIII, but it's just food reviews with occasional interruptions by Anne Boleyn. Kyle, I think you might have stumbled across the idea for a fantastic Channel 4 sitcom. I feel like the British would eat that shit right up.
It would be a good one.
David Mitchell would star.
David Mitchell as Henry VIII. I don't know.
Give him a fat suit. He'd be great. Okay, let's move on to let's look at some more content here. This
is
one
an interesting one.
Looks truly fascinating. Tell us all about it, Stefan.
So this is, and I need to do inverted commas here, the Shaman of Bad Durenberg in Germany.
That's fucking badass.
And this is a woman who was buried with a child about 9,000 years ago, I believe. An extremely elaborate burial. Hundreds, maybe even in the thousands of animal bones buried with her, seemingly, from their placement, they were around her head, they
Yeah.
were, on her chest. Presumably, this was jewelry of some form. And what is interesting about this woman is that she had some disorder with her bones. And I'm not a medical doctor, so this is where my descriptions are going to get probably wildly inaccurate.
Mm-hmm.
She had some issue with her bones where, like, she could easily restrict blood flow to her brain. And modern people with this condition can, as far as I'm aware, according to what I read, suffer from hallucinations, suffer from passing out, things like this. Now, what role this woman had in society, we can never know. We only know that she had an extremely elaborate burial for the time.
Wow.
And that she potentially had this condition which causes hallucinations.
Wow, that seems like some prophetess type of shit.
Yeah,
right there.
yeah. That's why it's called like the Shaman of Durenberg. I think I'm getting the name of the German town right. And I just feel like, religion before #content, you just had to go to church or something. I don't know. Religion probably filled that void of content.
Well, Stefan, I think religion can safely be placed in the content sphere.
Yeah.
It is content, right? It's the principal substance of a thing, which is the definition of content, and also it's highly monetizable.
Highly. You
Highly.
couldn't
So,
demonetize her because then you're discriminating against her shamanic beliefs.
Yes, you cannot. You could legally cannot demonetize. The government, at least, cannot legally demonetize a religious institution. So there you go.
But it does.
This is amazing, Stefan. This is like utterly badass.
Yeah, it is. It does make you think, because there is a part of me, dear Atun-Shei films viewers. I'm not a religious man, and a big part of me wonders, when all these stories were concocted, were people just tripping balls? And here, seemingly, we have at least a sign that someone who potentially suffered from hallucinations was given an extremely elaborate burial. So that is very cool.
Yeah, that is awesome, and I love that sort of artist's interpretation of what she might have looked like. That is, I think somebody mentioned Bjork in the Northman, and it very much has those sorts of vibes.
Well, there is
I can't remember could see that in an art film in a second.
Yeah, there was a Viking show or film that did like carbon copy this woman's dress and transport it into the Viking period, even though there were several thousand years between those two
exactly.
points. But she looks badass. She looks badass.
Yeah, she looks incredibly badass. I mean, that's awesome. Well, you do sort of. Sorry, remind me when she was buried again.
I think about 9,000 years ago.
9,000 years ago. I mean,
Mesolithic. This is before farming had come to Europe, so she was living a hunter-gatherer lifestyle, for sure.
So it does sort of like, I mean, again, and I kind of was joking about this earlier, but it does sort of beg the question, right? Like, how many Jesus of Nazareths were there that just never got written about? You know what I mean? Like, how many of these miracle workers, and actually, Dr. Justin Sledge, another good friend of the channel, over on the channel Esoterica, like about a month ago, made a great video about Galilean miracle workers in the 1st century AD that people should definitely check out if they're into this type of shit. But yeah, I mean, just the prehistoric, so there were a bunch of miracle workers around the same time as Jesus. But you think about, like, in prehistory, like, of course there was religion, of course there was there were prophets and prophecies and magic and miracles, and there were probably these like insanely influential figures, even just like regionally, I mean, there probably there was a, I mean, this prophetess may have had a huge amount of influence in, Western Syria or whatever, but like for the time that was still like a huge amount of land and a huge amount of people to like follow this woman or whatever. I mean, shit like that must have happened, not all the time, but like considering just the hundreds of thousands of years that we have of human history where we just like know nothing.
Yeah. Well,
There must
another
have been
really
a bunch of
interesting
those
one
people.
from German prehistory. I don't have a picture of it. So this was 7,000 years ago. So a couple of thousand years after this woman lived. By this time, farming communities had spread across Europe. And there's a site in Germany called Herxheim, where they believe it was like a mass cannibalism site. Like they believe they found the remains of 500 victims of cannibalism.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah. So, what was going on there? Clearly something going on there. They had
clearly there was something that was like kind of a big deal at the time. I'm sure that was kind of a big deal. Holy shit, that's awesome. Well, I think that is really cool and also highly monetizable. So I would say that is A+ content.
A+. Maybe not the cannibalism.
No,
that would have to be a Patreon bonus. Patreon.
Yes, that's a Patreon bonus. Is the cannibal massacre?
Yeah,
prehistoric cannibal massacre.
Yeah.
Holy shit, prehistory is wild. All right, let's look at some of our questions here. Let's see. Have we covered the significance of the internet to the overall study of our current and modern culture in the future and how it may misrepresent us?
I think we're too much in the eye of the storm. I don't think we have that historical perspective yet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think a lot about like, we definitely don't have that historical perspective. I definitely think that like, you could kind of compare it to a lot of times of kind of like great upheaval in history. I'm a 17th century guy, as a lot of you know, and I think a lot about, the Puritan radicals of the 17th century and the radicals of the Enlightenment and, and sort of the new communication tools that they used at their disposal and how there's just these like mountains of literature about kind of the topical topics of the day. And so that makes me think a lot about, Twitter and Reddit and these sorts of sites might be remembered in a similar way, but who fucking knows? Nobody knows.
One thing I do wonder is that like all of these products and forms of communicating, I would say, are very fragile in terms of their physical presence.
Yeah.
And so
totally,
you could foresee a scenario where like modern civilization collapsed.
Yeah.
And all of the servers are powered down.
Yeah.
And there would
What's
be
left?
Yeah, rather than this golden age of human communication, from an archaeologist's perspective, it might look like a dark age. Like we would have no record of what people thought.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, exactly. And isn't there like a like some sort of vault in Svalbard or something where people are trying to keep memes or something?
I don't know.
Like where the Norwegian government has like printouts of like Facebook for whatever reason, because I think it's like, well, if in case industrial society collapses, we might need people in the future to know what Facebook is.
Yeah, we need to preserve the memes.
We need to preserve the memes at all costs.
I don't know. I mean, but even so, you couldn't. They couldn't even save like the fraction of percent of all the stuff that went on the internet. Do you know what I mean? And stuff comes in and out of favor so quickly.
Yeah.
It's they can never possibly even preserve a fraction of it. I imagine. Sure. I'm not into. I don't know. Maybe people smarter than me have a solution to that, but I don't know.
Yeah, me neither. Well, all right. Let's hear one more question here. Eliza, who is a longtime patron of mine, I believe. So how's it going, Eliza? Asks, I assume to me, why do you give the founding fathers early modern English accents? Do you think by then regional accents formed in the 13 colonies? Yes, I do. But kind of for lack of better information, essentially is why I give them those accents. Although I kind of feel like I give them a bit more of a bit more of a transitional sort of accent when I do founding father quotes. It's sort of the it's not quite the Witchfinder General, but it's got this sort of like sort of still very Irish, but kind of modern.
I wouldn't have said Irish. I'd have said Somerset. How does it
or like
maybe?
West Country, right? That's
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
the that's kind of the sort of main thing that OP is sort of confirmed, but I think Americans kind of like, they sort of like, oh, Irish, or like, oh, Scottish, but sort of it's the Hagrid accent, right? Just
Yeah.
Harry, it's the hard R's and dropping the H, you're a wizard, Harry.
Yeah.
And sort of the long Y's at the end of words, that's kind of the closest English accent to original pronunciation and early modern English, as Eliza said. But yeah, sort of the so I kind of give them a bit of a transitional accent, because which is my own supposition, plus like, I'm not a linguistic expert by any means, so a lot of this is just me sort of just like making shit up for what I think might be kind of plausible based on what I do know. But I kind of have like a very sort of old timey, like, and this is the and we must look into the science of the size of the brain, sort of like 19th century like accent.
One thing I do
Yeah.
I was stumbling down a YouTube rabbit hole the other day, and I was watching recordings of people from the late 19th century or the early 20th century, but people like old people in like 1920 were obviously born in like the 1840s and 50s and stuff. And they sounded much more British than a modern American accent. Noticeably so. And these people were not like born in Britain and moved to America. At least some of the ones I watched, these were like born and raised Americans. Sounded significantly more British. And I also feel like the accent they spoke in seemingly has disappeared in the last 100 years. I've never heard an American speak like that, really.
Well, you kind of see it in like in old black and white movies, where it's sort of just like the transatlantic accent, where, and some of that was like an affectation, but like a lot of Hollywood actors in the golden age of Hollywood would say things just like, and I can't turn you in because I love you, and it's sort of this like, it's like kind of British, but not really, and that was considered very sort of elegant accent at the time. And but yeah, sort of but yeah, you're right. I mean, that's sort of early recordings, you just hear like somebody say like, like the Edison phonographs, and you hear people say stuff like, and I want what I want when I want it. This is the Edison phonograph. It's very sort of like, it's very kind of high, sort of scratchy, like sort of voice. Which, the only way I can describe it is.
But if you had said like, this is a recording from Britain in 1880, I wouldn't question it. I would be like, they clearly seemingly have a British accent, like maybe different to mine, but.
But to sort of finish, kind of, I guess my sort of twisted reasoning for making the founding fathers sound that way when I quote them in videos is it's sort of a transitional accent between sort of that sort of 19th century sort of semi kind of modern British accent and sort of a earlier sort of original pronunciation and early modern accent. So and also, to sort of fill in the blanks, I queue up a little scene from HBO's John Adams, which is also good inspiration, where it's just like, these colonies must be cleave to their mother country, and sort of it does sort of have that, so that's kind of the, to answer your question in a very roundabout way, that's how I landed upon that accent. Anyway, if you want Gobekli Tepe content, hop on over to @Stefan Milo on YouTube.
Well, I've only really made one video on that. I'll let you in on it.
Yeah, but it's a banger. Isn't it like an interview with like somebody who was there? I mean, just like a year ago.
German archaeologist who really worked there, whose name I'm terribly sorry I've forgotten. That's the Modelo frying my brain.
Sure. No, it was like a year ago in any case, but no, I mean, that was a great video.
I'll let you in on a secret, PB. I've held off making a video on that time and place because I want to make a video and go there. I want to get the real deal footage. I want to see if I can use my YouTube channel to get me some real behind the scenes access. Probably not this year because my wife is due to have another baby imminently.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh my God, that's right.
Yeah, so maybe not quite this year, but one of the hard things, and I'm sure you have the same problem, is like when you make a video, finding like good visual references for these things.
Oh sure,
like actually showing people what's going down, and I really want to. I really want to make more of an effort to go to these places. So I want to go to Göbekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe, that whole region of southern Turkey.
Yeah,
Shit
that would
was
be
really
absolutely
kicking
amazing.
off like 11,000 years ago. So stay
Yeah.
tuned for that PB. I will try and make that, but I just want to make it an absolute banger. I want to make it a steaming
Absolutely.
banger. So
Well, yeah, and I'm sure it will be. Well, let's hop back into our hashtag content here. And I will let's see here. We'll go back to our slideshow. So what do we have here, Stefan? Our next piece of content.
Now we're getting into some real content. I should have trimmed the description off this image on the left because you can already see what's up.
Whatever.
What did people do before content, before TV, before YouTube? At least if you lived 2,500 years ago in Central Asia, you were smoking the herb big time. So these two artifacts are from a cemetery in China, in far western China, where it sort of gets towards Kazakhstan. And the people at this time seem to love smoking weed. They're buried with these braziers, as you can see, where they would hollow out a log, add the hot stones, and seemingly put cannabis in them. These like rocks and braziers are covered in cannabis residue. On the right-hand side, you can see a clip of the burial from the cemetery. They're burying themselves under cannabis plants.
Holy shit.
Yeah, those plants there, those are just like, that's weed that they chose to bury themselves under.
Holy
and
fuck.
So
putting Cheech and Chong to shame.
Yeah, so 500 BC, Central Asia, it was going down. Down big time. And what's really interesting,
crazy.
Yeah, what's especially interesting about that is that there's a famous Herodotus quote from about how the Scythians lived and about how Scythians like hotbox their tents and they all have a great time and they laugh and all of that stuff. And that also dates to around 500 BC. So there seems to have been this trans-Asianic steppe nomadic hotbox culture going down at 500 BC in Asia. And that's content, man. That's pure content.
That is hashtag content right there. And
you
actually,
could set up
and
a
I can tell you,
cam in one of those yurts and it would make the best video for sure.
And I can tell you, Stefan, without fear of contradiction, that in Wayland, Massachusetts, where I grew up, coming home from college in my parents' driveway, in our little small town, there was absolutely a hotbox culture, a thriving hotbox culture.
Yeah.
And my friend Evan's antique car, which he called the spaceship. So
yeah.
Thriving. Hopefully, future archaeologists will also tell us.
Yeah,
we'll be able to.
We found this Honda Civic and it was covered in cannabis residue.
For real though. But wow, that is hashtag content. I will say it is not monetizable. Well, I mean, weed is always monetizable. I mean, it's decades of organized crime and legal marijuana has shown us that. But but I don't know, as it may violate some terms of service. So
it may. You definitely, as we discussed, you definitely couldn't have outside links.
No,
I see plenty of monetized YouTube video with people smoking weed in it.
Yeah,
but you couldn't put a link to, I don't know.
Yeah, to really anything.
Chariot wielding drug dealer.
Yep. Yeah, imagine that. It was just like a guy coming in on a chariot. It's just like, yo, can I get an eighth?
Yeah, I would pay a premium for that service for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
If it actually came in a chariot,
yeah, precisely.
I'll get it to you in 3 days. I'll leave now, but I'll get it to you in 3 days.
Yeah, and he's got it, and the delivery driver comes with a pharaonic crown, and sort of
well, interesting.
Upper and Lower Egypt represented.
You mentioned pharaonic. I do have a little bit of cannabis trivia about ancient Egypt too.
Oh, cool.
So
lay it on me.
Apparently, they used to mix cannabis with celery, grind it into a mush, and then they would rub it in their eyes. They believed it was like a good medicine for eye problems. Huh. And so ancient Egyptians would create, if it does, this idea does hinge on the fact that we have correctly translated cannabis in ancient Egypt, which I believe is not guaranteed.
Yeah, it's not on the Rosetta Stone.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It wasn't saying.
So, but if we have
yeah,
correctly translated it, then that's what they did with it, which is
Yeah.
crazy way to get stoned, I will say.
Yeah, that is an insane way to get stoned. Yeah. Hashtag content, everyone. This
Hashtag content.
is absolutely content. All right, let's a couple more quick questions, but I want to keep it moving along for all the hashtag content. Thank you, Noah. You get us. You really do. And I think there was another question here. Okay, here we go. Padraig McLaughlin says, I know you're from Massachusetts. Are you familiar with Rhode Island's history? I'm from a place called Woonsocket. Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with Rhode Island history as far as Roger Williams and colonial stuff and whaling and their weird pro-slavery weirdness. But yeah, I mean, certainly I know a lot about Roger Williams and I should make a video about him. It's past time. Absolutely fascinating dude. Thank you, Barnacle Bob.
Gang.
Spoon Mike. Spoon Mike's kind of a thing of the past, right, Stefan?
Spoon Mike. Oh man, I mean, I could go in a deep dive on this. The Spoon Mike is currently at the office. I don't literally have it with me. I believe I am going to super glue the spoon to my 100,000 subscriber badge because
fun. Oh, that's a great idea.
Long story short, it started out as a fun thing to remind me not to take myself so seriously, to remember and to sort of have this attitude like it doesn't matter like how good you are at making a video, just start making a video.
Yeah.
But it almost had become like now it's gotten to the point where I would have to force it into the video because so it's become like a fun thing
a meme.
To an impediment.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it became content.
It became content, yeah. So I might squeeze one last video out of it where I super glue it to my 100,000 subscriber badge. And then still
retire it,
serves its purpose as this memento of like how far I've come. But I don't have to think about in this video about an Australopithecus. How do I fit a spoon into it?
Yeah, exactly.
But I appreciate the lore that's built around it. And I don't want to disrespect people's enthusiasm for the spoon because I share that.
Autonomous Filmmaker wishes us a happy Juneteenth and gives us £7. £7.
Happy Juneteenth.
Yeah, £7. And then
can I ask? I don't actually know when Juneteenth is. Sorry, when is that?
It is the 19th. So it's Sunday.
Okay.
Monday. Yeah, so it's June 19th. I like the Narragansett beer. In fact, this is the I was telling Stefan hashtag not sponsored. This is the 1975 limited edition that I picked up. Anybody from New England, based on the background, will guess that I am not in Louisiana right now. But this is the 1975 edition, the limited edition can that they made because remember in Jaws when Quint has that scene where he was crushing a Gansett can. So they are shamelessly capitalizing on it, and I fell for the marketing hook, line, and sinker because Jaws is one of my all-time fucking favorite movies. Yeah, and I totally, that's just the sort of sucker I am. All right, let's go back to our content, Stefan. Let's hit us with another piece here. What do you got? What is this?
So this is argued to be the oldest representation of two people doing it. So it dates to about 11,000 years ago from just near modern Bethlehem. Seems like no virgin birth going on here.
Yeah, I was going to say Bethlehem, yeah.
Yeah. And it belongs to this sort of culture that spanned like this start of agriculture, this Natufian culture it's called. Very interesting time, very interesting place. And you can kind of see where people get that idea from. It does kind of look like two intertwined people.
Yeah.
Is it the first representation of people doing it? I don't, we can't ask the artist. I don't know, but it's definitely a valid idea. I think you can definitely kind of see that. two people are certainly seemingly intertwined. They got their legs around each other.
I mean, it does. You can kind of see it does sort of look like they're kissing, right? Like you sort of, that they're sort of their faces are turned and sort of like it does look like a kiss. I mean, I'm no expert, but it looks pretty convincing to me.
That's not how Atun-Shei does it. He only does it back to back.
Ass to ass.
Yeah.
As they say.
Yeah.
Well,
But
cool. Yeah. So
there's arguably that, but it does bring up that whole debate in archaeology. When we find a ritual object, it's like, is it really a ritual object? Is it really a fertility symbol? Or did it have a practical purpose? Was it pornographic in nature, dare I say?
Yeah.
They're all sort of equally valid interpretations because we can never ask the artist.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think just the massive place that sex has in just the human psyche, I would think that it would be. It's almost surprising that it doesn't pop up in early art more.
Yeah, well, yeah, there is. There are some other representations. There is one from Germany again. I seem to be picking on Germany a lot for this video, but
you are. It's all right. After you start a world war, people can make fun of you for 100 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Without being offensive. So I think.
But there was a sort of two-piece statue found there from, I believe. I don't know the day off the top of my head, but he argued that it was a guy behind and a woman bent over that this statue was representing, but the statues were both broken, and he kind of really only excavated like a penis and maybe a waist, and then he like sketched what he thought the rest of the statue would be. So I'm not sure about it, but
yeah. It's kind of, it's like he saw like a very abstract image and was like, see, and then just drew like a super like
you got this
naughty, yeah.
Bend it down.
He just added it all himself, and it was just like, that's totally it. It's like, no, man, you're just a pervert.
Yeah.
No, but well, and that's interesting. I wonder when, like, because have we ever talked about Quest for Fire, the movie? That's like one of my favorite movies of all time.
I don't know.
About cavemen, basically. It's like set. It's a little the history it's not terribly historically accurate anymore, but in 1982 or whatever, when it came out, it was like very historically accurate.
Yeah.
And it's about Neanderthals, and there's no dialogue. And because it's literally just and it's just like Ron Perlman's in it. It's great. And it's about like this Neanderthal tribe that gets attacked and by another species of hominid, and then they lose their one fire source and they can't make it themselves. So they go on a quest for fire. Like this like young warrior goes off to like look for fire and encounters a Homo sapien tribe who basically sort of like have abstract art, and like they like paint themselves, and they has this whole culture that the Neanderthals don't have. And basically he shacks up with this native with this lady, and they like and she teaches him missionary sex, basically, because he's like 17 and he's trying to like do a doggy style, and she's just like, no, let's do it this way. And then that's hilariously his two friends are in the cave next to them, and one of them gets kind of horny and tries to hit on the other one, and it's a delightful movie. But no dialogue.
Isn't that so funny how we have like this like human-centric view of evolution where it's like Neanderthals didn't even do it missionary style.
Yeah. Well,
like, they had to be taught that's the dignified human way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, but I think it would be interesting, a study about sex positions. I'm sure it's been done.
Well, there's plenty of ancient and prehistoric art that is more graphic than that. I just picked it because it's arguably the first hashtag sexual content. And that's very big. I think it's great.
It is very big on the internet, and I mean, it's sort of, I mean, certainly not monetizable under YouTube's community guidelines, but I mean, let's be real, OnlyFans would eat that shit up. Yeah.
Those two people could definitely have like a YouTube channel that directs to other channels.
Yeah.
Off YouTube.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
precisely. Yeah, directs to other channels off YouTube. That's good. All right. Let's snag a couple of questions here. I will just try to find. Let's see the first one that I come across. See if there's any. Hold up. All right. What are some famous ritual items originally misrepresented and later corrected? And what others that have become misrepresented over time? That seems like you should feel that. Do you sort of?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
One, I don't. So the hard thing is we can never ask the artist. So we can never truly know what these images represented to people in prehistory. But our interpretation can change over time. One big one is Venus figurines. Archaeologists don't even like to call them Venus figurines anymore, really, because of its connotation of, like, you know, classical figures and stuff that the person in prehistory may not have wanted to represent at all. So, you know, it's not that our interpretations of those change as such as we add other equally valid interpretations that would previously be dismissed. Like, you know, you could read an old book and it would say something like, men definitely made all these Venus figurines. And it's like, we don't know that. They could have been made by women. They could be self-portraits. You know, some people argue that like quite exaggerated perspective that Venus figurines, female figurines, tend to have is arguably the result of a woman creating a self-portrait and looking down at herself.
Yeah.
And so, and her proportions would seem like exaggerated from that perspective.
Yeah.
So that's another idea. There are ideas where, I mean, you still see it, where like various phallic objects are like described as, this is an object from an altar. And it's like, well, maybe archaeologists, okay, maybe this could have had other practical uses, things like that. So, but it's just hard to say. We can never ask the artist. So
yeah, exactly. We were just sort of, at the end of the day, we have sort of no idea. And actually, that's a great transition into some of my picks, since I think we got to the end of yours, Stefan. So I think we can move on to the rest of mine. And speaking of stuff we have absolutely no freaking idea about, here, let me go to my little write up here. So this very striking piece of content is nicknamed Stargazer. It dates to 3000 BCE. And according to the Cleveland Museum of Art website, this statuette of a woman was carved in the ancient Near East, probably Western Anatolia in the early Bronze Age. We can tell it's a female figure because of the inscribed pubic triangle below her waist. Humana, humana. The Stargazer moniker was given to this diminutive marble sculpture because its upturned head looks toward the heavens. Details carved onto the stone are visible, while painted features have been lost to time. We do not know how this object was used, but its enigmatic nature invites speculation. As you would say, Stefan, well, interesting.
Yeah, it is actually like a stunningly beautiful piece of sculpture.
You
could put that
content.
True. Let's not devalue content by suggesting it's art.
Let's not devalue content by calling it art. Yeah. Seriously.
You could totally. I mean, I would absolutely love to have something like that in my house. You know, it'd be an absolutely beautiful sculpture. It is. It is brilliant.
Yeah. It definitely caught my eye too. I thought it was like, wow, that's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it does look vaguely kind of sci-fi-y, which I love.
Yeah.
I love that sort of, if one didn't know any better, one would think that it was made by aliens, right, Stefan?
Well, it is interesting. It is, we do, or at least maybe this is just me because I'm not a knowledgeable person about art, which is why I was invited on this live stream. But I do tend to associate like abstract art with like modern art in the 20th century.
Oh, sure.
But someone in the Bronze Age can, just make like a wild ass piece of abstract art, like
Yeah.
head out of proportion, body, wing, arms just like wing shaped,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Just like
also
these
like
big triangles.
creating this like teardrop of the body.
Yeah.
It's pretty stunning, honestly.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I thought it was like absolutely breathtaking. And I like how, I mean, I think and it really, I mean, we were talking about Göbekli Tepe in southern Turkey and that sort of, how shit was popping off in ancient times. And I think that, like, I mean, Anatolia is just like a science fiction world, like ancient
Yeah.
Anatolia is so unique and weird and alien and fascinating. And just the landscape just looks like an alien planet, and the cultures, I mean, even the Hittites were like, and they're fairly recent, all things considering, but they were just, their art style was just like so unique and so weird, like at least with Egypt, you can kind of see like there's kind of like a straight line, right? Where it's sort of like Egypt influenced Greece and Greece influenced Rome and Rome influenced everybody else. And like, there's sort of something kind of recognizable about Egyptian art, something that's sort of familiar about Egyptian art. But Anatolian art in general is just like so alien and just so just unique. And it really just, it's like a thread of history that sort of was severed, or just that doesn't really have like a descendant that's like readily apparent today. You can look at Roman architecture and you look at like Washington, D.C., and you can sort of see the connection. But, I don't think there's any like, any major buildings that are based on like a Hittite, monster, that guarded the city gates or whatever. I mean,
I don't know. I don't know. I imagine there are some modern architectural pieces in Turkey that are influenced by that history. But I definitely don't know that off the top of my head.
That might be a David Miano question. I think he would probably know. But
yeah, I wonder, there is sort of that I wonder if that's just because of the outsized influence of Greece and Rome on at least Western like art and architecture.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just like the norm, that a society that lived so long ago has no clear links to now. Maybe that's the norm and it's Rome that's the anomaly, because we, in the Renaissance, we're like, actually, let's go back to that.
Yeah. No, totally. That's a good point.
Yeah.
That is a very good point. Oh my God. Paulie with $49.99. Holy shit. Thank you. That is so nice. If they had a time machine, do you think the Bronze Age Cahokia mound culture, well, they weren't Bronze Age, but would be impressed that mankind was thrown 16 feet through an announcer's table by Undertaker during Hell in a Cell in 1998? Yeah, I think they would.
I think they would.
But Cahokia was not Bronze Age. That was like, Cahokia was it's not my area of expertise, but I believe around 900 BC. I think they were like, or AD, they were like contemporaries with the Maya, if I recall correctly. But I think
maybe a little bit, maybe about 1,000, but I don't know off the top of my head. I really don't know.
Yeah, that is an ancient America's question, which, speaking of good channels, but they would know.
And but there was a North American copper culture, just to throw that out there, just to throw out the idea that American
the copper cultures,
like weren't producing metalwork. Some definitely were, but
but
I don't think Cahokia was in that metal producing world as such.
Yeah, I don't think it was either, but I have no idea. You guys should look it up, because I know next to nothing about that stuff.
I do think they would, like, people in the past would find like wrestling freaking entertaining, because they love that like dramatic combat,
martial.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that warrior culture. I mean, could you imagine what the Norse would have made of the WWE? I mean,
yeah, or the Romans would have been like, man, these gladiator fights are tame. Like,
yeah, exactly. I mean, just the sheer spectacle of it would be fantastic. I mean, no, without a doubt. So about I mean, it is sort of a lot of the mound cultures, though. Like, I mean, Cahokia is like a park where you can go and there's, and you can like visit and you know what I mean? It's like a cordoned off, like, historical interpretation site. And there's a few of them, like Poverty Point, where I made a video of Poverty Point, which is like in the middle of absolutely nowhere, near Vicksburg,
Yeah.
in sort of across the river in Louisiana. But somebody just fired off a gun. But yeah, so like, but a lot of those mound complexes in the Mississippi River Valley, which is like, arguably some of the earliest human civilization ever, is certainly in the Western Hemisphere, is just like totally inaccessible because a lot of it is on private property, and people don't want to
Golf
sell. I know
courses.
yeah. I mean, like Watson Brake in Louisiana is older. I mentioned this in a video, in a New Orleans history video, is older than the pyramids, and yet it can't be properly studied because the owner refused to sell. And in some quotes to the media, the owner heavily implied that they did not think that evolution was real. And
what I don't get, I know
know,
this is the land of the free, but I can't believe that the government doesn't have the ability to take that person's land. And
no, the government does not. This is the land of the free. Unironically, Stefan, get your royalist bullshit.
They need to just take that guy's land.
Pull
up Queen Liz, she'll sort it out.
This guy may stand for everything that I stand against, but we can't have Joey B coming and taking his land. Absolutely
we'll
not.
Adequately
I will stand
compensate
shoulder to
him.
shoulder as patriots with this man, to prevent the likes of George III to do whatever.
They would take his land if they needed to build a freeway
or an oil pipeline.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
But to preserve a historic artifact, no.
Yeah, then no. Absolutely not. No. Okay, so let's move on to our next piece of hot content here. All right. Okay, so, and here's our next piece of content, which is Hamlet, The Tragedy of Hamlet, Prince of Denmark, a play by William Shakespeare, from the early 17th century. So it was probably written between 1599 and 1601 and performed shortly after. A brief synopsis. Events before the start of Hamlet, according to the Folger Shakespeare website, events before the start of Hamlet set the stage for tragedy. When the King of Denmark, Prince Hamlet's father, suddenly dies, Hamlet's mother, Gertrude, marries his uncle Claudius, who becomes the new king. A spirit, who claims to be the ghost of Hamlet's father, describes his murder at the hands of Claudius and demands that Hamlet avenge the killing. When the conciliar Polonius learns from his daughter Ophelia that Hamlet has visited her in an apparently distracted state, Polonius attributes the prince's condition to lovesickness, and he sets a trap for Hamlet using Ophelia as bait. To confirm Claudius's guilt, Hamlet arranges for a play that mimics the murder. Claudius's reaction is that of a guilty man. Hamlet, now free to act, mistakenly kills Polonius, thinking that he is Claudius. Claudius sends Hamlet away to England as part of a deadly plot. After Polonius's death, Ophelia goes mad and later drowns. Hamlet, who has returned safely to confront the king, agrees to a fencing match with Ophelia's brother Laertes, who secretly poisons his own rapier. At the match, Claudius prepares poisoned wine for Hamlet, which Gertrude unknowingly drinks. As she dies, she accuses Claudius, who Hamlet then kills. Then first Laertes and then Hamlet die, both victims of the poisoned rapier. That is Hamlet, Prince of Denmark, by William Shakespeare. What do we think as far as monetizable content?
I'm going to go out on a limb here. It's monetizable, but I think the hardest thing to do on YouTube is to create fiction content.
Oh boy, let me tell you.
I think Shakespeare would have a hard time on modern YouTube. I'm going to put that out there. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because, for fiction, you sort of have to suspend the audience's disbelief, and maybe that's hard. Mm-hmm. And that's an extremely difficult thing to do. But you, I'm sure, know better than me. Like, what's it like creating fiction on YouTube? Fiction content.
Yeah, I mean, people don't really know what to do with it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough. I mean, well, I have I feel like sketch comedy can thrive on YouTube, and on the
as long as it's under like 3 minutes. It seems.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Quick
video. It's got to be quick. I mean, most of these sketch comedies are, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Your sketch comedy can thrive on YouTube. But yeah, fiction, like especially kind of like narrative fiction, you're right, is kind of doesn't, find a place. I mean, I feel like I got very lucky with Frozen 50s Man, which is my main piece of narrative content that I have on this channel. I would love to do. I do have sort of a couple of sort of cinematic sort of interludes in other things that are mostly educational. Excuse me. But yeah, Frozen 50s Man is kind of the big series, and I feel like I lucked out on that people kind of picked up what I was putting down. I made this weird thing that was very different from anything I'd done before, and was narrative. It was a fictional. It was a television episode. It was an old timey television episode, detective procedural, and people actually responded to it and thought it was funny, which was insane. And I feel like that is a very rare occurrence.
It's rare. It's hard.
Yeah. I don't think that people, I think like somebody, and I mean, hell, I did it for years before, the whole Atun-Shei films thing. I had another channel and I put like my short films and stuff on there, and nobody fucking watched it. Nobody cared. So, but I do think that Shakespeare would be right at home in modern in the modern film industry. Shakespeare, and I've talked about this in a video I did about Shakespeare. Shakespeare was a mainstream commercial playwright, right? This was not artsy stuff. This was not highbrow stuff. It was mass media, popular entertainment. So
yeah.
So I think that I would say that, yeah, I would agree that I think that, in terms of monetization and YouTube's terms of service, a 4-hour play.
Well, people do like that long content. I don't know. Some of the long videos get hugely successful.
That's true. I mean, if only it were a 4-hour video tearing apart The Last Jedi. If only Shakespeare made something like that, then I could see it, That's too short. It would have to be at least an 11-hour video tearing apart The Last Jedi.
Can I take a quick detour here? Super quick, as you brought it up. Are you watching the latest Star Wars series on Disney?
I saw the first 3 episodes, yeah.
I understand that they're made for children, I suppose, but it's terrible. It's terrible. They need to get Bill Shakespeare on the case, Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I mean, my feelings about it, I don't know. I thought it was very middle of the road. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. I found myself distracted by it. Like, it's one of those shows where like it kind of says something where, if I like get up to get a sleeve of Oreos, am I pausing the show or am I just letting it run?
Yeah.
Well, I get my Oreos, and it's like, and Kenobi is kind of show, I'll let it run, is whatever. Better Call Saul, which I'm also going through. I will pause. I will not miss a fucking frame of Better Call Saul, but Kenobi, yeah.
I'm definitely letting it run. Definitely.
I mean, I feel like I mean, no disrespect to the actor who plays little girl Leia. For her age, she's great, but I think just the whole, rescuing little girl Leia is just a bad premise.
I mean, ignoring the fact that they can't seem to just like move on from Tatooine and all those characters.
Exactly.
Like I'll be watching the show and I'll enjoying it, and then it'll do something just so silly, and I'll be like, "Who green-lighted that scene?"
Yeah. No, for sure.
With all the money and resources they have, it's like, oh, God.
I do love I mean, I think Ewan McGregor can do no wrong, and I also think that one scene where Darth Vader like went through the village and like fucking like and like lifted people up and like choked them and shit. I thought that was awesome. But I did think it was lame how and we'll get back to our hashtag content in a moment, everybody. I think we actually gained viewers since we started talking about Star Wars, which is typical.
Yeah.
But the thing about Darth Vader that he's like, and this is really like nitpicky, but the way that Darth Vader moves in that show, I don't like how the way he moves. He moves too quickly. He's too jumpy. You know what I mean? It's like Darth Vader is somebody, he like takes his time. He fucking calculating. he fucking fought Luke with one hand. Like he was just like dun, dun, dun. Like he's just like this guy. Like he does not need to like run anywhere. He's just like walks slowly up to. He doesn't even need to lift his hand to choke you from across a fucking spaceship. This guy is in no hurry. And that's what was like scary about him. And also, it was like that one scene where like somebody started a fire and then he was able, Ewan McGregor was able to escape from Darth Vader. It's like, what the fuck? Like this guy is like the most powerful space wizard ever. Wouldn't he just like lift up and just like go over the fire? Or just like put it out with his magic? I don't know.
Do you mind if I talk about the episode you haven't seen?
No, I don't mind. Go ahead.
There's a scene. This is a massive spoiler, okay? Anyone that is really digging Kenobi, put your fingers in your ears for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But okay. There's a scene in the latest one where Kenobi, out of the blue, convinces that Inquisitor woman to betray Darth Vader. And it didn't take him long to convince her, honestly. That's kind of a pretty swift plot turnaround. And then he's like, this is our chance to stop him together. And then she nods and he runs off and he's like, what are you doing? You're supposed to help them together.
he runs away. So yeah, that reminds me of that Simpsons joke where it's like where like Chief Wiggum corners Snake and was just like, come quiet. It's like, what are you doing, you coward? He like calls him a coward and he says, like, would a coward do this? And then he runs away.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. But I'll have to watch for myself. But yeah, no, it's very dead. But anyway.
Hashtag content.
We don't want to skip ahead to more recent content. Don't forget, we're still in the 17th century. We just did Hamlet, which is a great piece of content. Though, curiously, it was only Shakespeare's fourth most popular play in his lifetime, behind like Henry VI, Part 1, and like Pericles. Like not even like Romeo and Juliet wasn't even like a blip in his lifetime, but now it's like
maybe people were more into like classical literature and like knew the stories and stuff that he was trying to produce. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that like also there was as far as like the history plays, like the Henry IV and Henry V and stuff, these were like, culturally relevant sort of events, that people kind of connected with and stuff. And look at that. We went back to talking about, went from talking about Shakespeare to talking about Hamlet, and we were hemorrhaged viewers. We lost like 15 people, but that's all right. I don't need you guys. I don't need you. You can leave. It's fine.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our next piece of content here. So here is our next piece of content, which is the Miniature Dachshund. As you can see, that is my dog Sal.
Oh, no way. That's a nice dog, man. That's a cute dog.
Yeah. Oh, he's the cutest. He's inside, but I don't think I would grab him. He's been on live streams before, but I don't know where he is. So the Miniature Dachshund is a piece of content from the 18th or 19th century AD. According to Wikipedia, these small, long dogs were originally bred in the Black Forest of Germany for hunting small game. The origin of the dachshund is unknown, but there are references, or Dachshund for the English. There are references to dogs called Dachkrieger, or badger warrior, in German sources dating to the early 18th century. Almost every aspect of a dachshund's anatomy was specifically bred to aid in hunting. Old-style dachshunds were originally larger dogs with longer legs, but sometime in the late 18th or more likely early 19th century, a smaller breed, the miniature dachshund, such as Sal is, was developed. Many dachshunds were ideally sized for following prey into their burrows. Their sense of smell is literally 1 million times more sensitive than a Homo sapiens, and they can track a scent that is more than a week old.
Damn.
So the amazing miniature dachshund, everybody.
We must absolutely reek to them.
Oh God, yeah.
Like a million times more sensitive. They must not. We can never comprehend how badly we smell to these guys.
Yeah, no. Well, and also, I mean that, and the and just like the like sickly chemical smell of like shampoo and soap, must be just like really gross. Yeah. But yeah, no. I mean, Sal can, he can smell, I think he can like discern, maybe because he's German, and he might be a little bit more sensitive to things like bloodlines and and that. But I feel like he can smell members of my family, because like he's met members of my family that he has never met before, and he's always been, and he's like not good with strangers, right? He's just like not, especially kids. He will like rip a child's throat out, like if given half a chance. He hates children. And so do I. Child free, baby. No offense, Stefan. I would love to meet your daughter. She seems wonderful. But in any case, so but like my relatives who he has never met before, he's always very excited to meet, and he always wiggles his butt, and he's he's just very excited, and he has a great memory for that too. Like for my family members, he always knows, like, when my mom is around, and he always gets really excited and stuff like that. So, so the Miniature Dachshund, another, we mustn't forget that when we're talking about content, we also need to include dogs, which are absolutely a piece of human-made content, and domesticated cows and factory farmed chickens and pigs, specifically bred for our various human-made purposes, and therefore hashtag content.
Yeah, there definitely was, before the internet, a lot more animal-based content, like cockfighting, bear baiting. If you lived in the 18th century, probably couldn't read. Even if you did have a book, you probably couldn't read it. And the closest thing to entertainment to YouTube boxing was watching two people fight their chickens. Which was the YouTube boxing of its day. We should do a history YouTube boxing. That would be fun.
Oh man, I would love that. That'd be hilarious. If we do you want to fight, Stefan?
Well, would we be in the same weight? How tall are you?
I'm 6 feet, but I'm very skinny.
6 feet skinny. Yeah. I'm a chunky 5'11". We'd probably be in the same weight category. We could do that.
Yeah.
I'd have to see.
I mean, but a history YouTube boxing match would be awesome. But there are also, like, you've got the cynical historian and Knowing Better, who are like literally fucking combat veterans. So that might.
Yeah, I have a feeling they're both short though. I've never met either of them, but I'm pegging them both as short.
Stefan, God damn it. Well,
only joking if you guys are watching.
They totally are. No, they know. They're good boys. So yeah, I would love to do, but yeah, no, you're right. It was like very fucked up. The like dog fighting and badger fighting, actually, when I was doing a little bit of research on dachshunds, oftentimes there'd be like a badger fight where, in Germany in the 19th century, basically you just like release a dachshund into a cage with a badger and like let the best man win,
Yeah.
Pretty screwed up.
Was there a thing in America as well where they would like chain up a turkey and people would take pot shots at it, and whoever killed it got the turkey? Yeah.
It's fucked up. It's incredibly anyway,
I feel like that'd be really easy. I feel like you'd need a few turkeys in that scenario.
Yeah,
I suppose these are muskets. You would fire it and it could just go wildly on.
Yeah, and they could just go wild.
In the wrong direction.
That would just be I don't know. I maybe I'm just a soy boy. I definitely am a soy boy, but I wouldn't be able to fucking live with myself if I did that shit. All right. Let's see. Let's answer a couple of your questions here. Well, we have a comment from John. Thanks for the €5, man. Skellig Michael and Star Wars, ancient history and science fiction. Greetings from the west of Ireland. Greetings, John. Greetings. Let's see what else we got here. Thank you, Joe. How common were composite blades of obsidian, Stefan? And what glue did they use? That's an oddly specific question.
I couldn't tell you, nor could I tell you how common they were, honestly. I mean, in Europe, I feel like obsidian is certainly more common in American archaeology than in European. I don't know that we have enough volcanoes to produce loads of obsidian in Europe. We had lots of like granite axes that someone would like laboriously grind down. It would take absolutely ages. The only glue fact I know really from prehistory is that they would make it from birch tar, things like that.
Interesting.
And I imagine, it's going to be something like that anywhere in the world. I imagine there's going to be a plant with like a particularly sticky residue, whatever that is in your local area, and that's the glue that you would probably use for everything. But obsidian, at least in America, was traded like huge distances. Like you can find obsidian from my state, Oregon, as far as the Great Lakes, even as long back as like 9,000 years ago. It would be traded that far. So it was certainly an item that people prized and would trade long distances for.
Yeah, totally. No, it makes sense. All right, let's move on here. What else we got here? So we have the Miniature Dachshund, and now moving rapidly into a very modern era. Here we have a wonderful piece of content called "The Power of Music" from 1847 AD. This is an oil on canvas by American artist William Sidney Mount, and also according to the Cleveland Museum of Art website, set in rural Long Island before the Civil War. Mount's complex painting presents an African-American laborer listening intently to a fiddle tune enjoyed by white men. While a love of music unites the figures in a bond of shared humanity, the two races occupy different spaces, one inside, one outside, both separated by a barn door, effectively symbolizing the pronounced divisions in America at the time. At the time.
Yeah. We don't live in those days anymore, clearly.
Yes.
No divisions in American society.
Quoting from the website. Yeah, but I saw this. I came across this painting while I was hunting for hashtag content and was immediately struck by it. I thought it would be a great, it's one of those paintings where you could just like immediately see it just like as a composition for a film. You know what I mean? Where you'd see like a behind the scenes video of some Civil War movie and somebody would say, oh, well, actually we based this shot on this particular obscure painting from, 1847. But I loved the composition with the jug and the axe kind of off there in the corner, and the way that sort of the frame is bisected by the barn door and stuff. I just thought it was a very well done painting, a very good composition, and wonderful hashtag content. And and as far as monetizability, we all need to know that brands are well aware of social issues. I need to know, I think paraphrasing Bo Burnham, I need to know what Gap thinks about social justice. So it's good to know that companies are woke. But in all seriousness, I do think this is a fucking dope ass, very evocative.
It's great. It's a beautiful painting. But it's also, you got to be careful with that music on YouTube and content.
Oh, yes, true. Yeah.
To be honest, you could include this in your YouTube video, and that fiddle player, he was going to take all your money.
Yes.
Whoever's playing that fiddle.
Yeah, precisely. That's going to get all your ad revenue.
Yeah. I heard there are lots of interesting theories about the development of music and why did we develop this love of music?
Oh, interesting. Do tell.
Well, there's one, there's so many, but there's one that I really love because I just like the name of it. It's called auditory cheesecake. And yeah.
What?
That's not like an official name of the theory, but it is like it's basically this idea like we didn't evolve to love cheesecake. We evolved to need high calories, and our high calories taste good to us.
Yeah, 100%.
Therefore, cheesecake tastes good to us. But there was never a point in time where we evolved a specific desire for cheesecake.
Yeah.
And it could be that music is the same thing, that like, we didn't evolve a love for music. We evolved language. We evolved intelligence. We evolved, keen hearing and like an ability to create sounds, and so a love of music could just be an indirect result of those factors. But that is kind of a cop-out, because I do think we love music more than that theory would suggest. I think we really love and relate to music.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think so too. It's very well, it's like any other piece of art, right? It's like yeah, with music, you kind of have the added complexity where you sort of need to make instruments for it. You know, for most music, I mean, you know, you could sort of bang a stick on a, you know, on a rock a certain way, and you can,
or you can
create a
sing
certain sound. And well, but yes, great point. Yeah, you can sort of sing a certain way, but like it isn't like drawing necessarily, which I can see is just like a very simple, you know, like the earliest piece of content that we were looking at were very simple, you know, just like a mark on a shell or a bit of ochre on a rock, and you can sort of create something. But with music or with even like performance, right, or storytelling, you know, there's kind of there's sort of another element involved there, right? It isn't sort of like it's a capacity for memory, it's a capacity for you know, I mean obviously drawing requires creativity, but it's sort of a slightly more advanced style of creativity where, you know, in terms of music, you kind of like, you need to have an emotional, you're appealing to kind of emotional intelligence, and there's a certain emotion you're evocative, you're trying to be evocative of a certain emotion. And yeah, I mean, who fucking knows, man? Big question.
It makes you wonder if there's like a group of Homo erectus, in the same way that one like did the scratches on the cave on that shell. Maybe there's a group just sitting down, and one of them went like a Scooby Bop, and everyone just like stopped what they were doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what was that?
And just start scatting. A boop, a do, a boop, a dee, ba da ba. You know, they just launched into early 20th century jazz just off the cuff.
Yeah.
That sounds a bit more like a Geico commercial, but in any case, here, keep them entertained for just a hot second. It's kind of getting dark, and I'm going to turn on the light here.
All right. Let me give you guys another kind of difficult thing to know about the evolutionary origins of music. One thing that seems to not be able to explain it is just straight up sexual selection, which is obviously a huge driving factor in evolution. Because although like people's love of music can definitely have like a sexual element, people definitely are attracted to musicians, their favorite musicians. It seems to be much deeper than that. Like heterosexual people can be attracted to the music made by the same sex, and all of that stuff. So again, like it is complicated. There's no simple explanation for the origins of music. It doesn't seemingly be connected to sexual selection. And we seem to have a deep and profound attachment to it. So it doesn't seem like it's just a byproduct of other desires. It's pretty interesting. Video coming soon on the Stefan Milo channel.
Oh, that would be dope. That'd be dope. Yeah. Subscribe for more content. No, I'm not joking. Go to, if you don't know who this man is, go watch his shit, because it's fucking awesome. If you like well considered, well sourced, quality over quantity type of shit, which I suspect you do if you watch me, then watch his shit. Anyway, let's move on to our next piece of content here. I think we're well on our way to finishing. Oh, you know what, everybody, you are in for a treat, because in fact, this piece of content is a video file. This is our last piece of content for the evening, and here it is. It's from 2009.
Come on.
Hey, Daryl. What's shaking?
Well, Chester, I've been trying to artificially inseminate old Laney Sue down there. This purebred I got from Scarsboro. Just can't seem to get him excited, if you know what I mean.
You mean like a horsey boner?
Yep. Damn book just doesn't seem interested.
Well, have you tried showing him a picture of a stegosaurus yet?
Now, why in the hell would I want to do that?
'Cause horses love stegosauruses.
Really?
Yeah. I keep this picture on me at all times. I use it on all my stallions.
Whoa! Okay, that's enough. Hey, pull the poster down. Pull the poster down, man.
Seems to me that horse ain't seen a stegosaurus for quite some time.
Get me another bucket, Chester. Help!
That was, of course, Horses Love Stegosauruses from 2009, an iconic piece of content. It was written by Trevor Moore and Darren Trumeter for season 3, episode 9 of the sketch comedy show The Whitest Kids You Know, broadcast on the television network IFC on March 24th, 2009. Television is a 20th century medium that was kind of like live streaming. It could be kind of a live streaming. It was a form of content that essentially had some pre-programmed content that would basically choose for you what you were going to watch. The purpose of the sketch is unknown, but it is believed to have been originally written and performed for ritual or religious purposes. So yeah, that is our most recent piece of content. We've really come full circle, right? From the earliest evidence of human cognition, and well, not cognition, but the capability of abstract thought, to a piece of content that really represents the dawning of a new era. And of new art forms and of just titanic shifts in the way that we perceive art and more importantly, hashtag content. So that was Horses Love Stegosauruses, everybody.
I wonder if there was like back in the day in like the Roman period, there was just like absolutely abstract comedy, you know, just with like no rhyme or reason, like, oh, the Legionnaire and the Duck or something, like the Centurion and the Duck.
Have you ever read the Satiricon or heard of the Satiricon?
No.
So it was written by this guy, Caius Petronius, who was one of like Nero's courtiers. So, you know, he killed himself because of course he did. But yeah, he was Nero's arbiter of taste. So he was considered as very like hip and happening guy. And he was full of all of the debauchery of Nero's court. He was the guy getting fucked up all day and whatever. And he wrote a book called the Satiricon, which was about these two Romans who were basically fighting over the sexual affections of their slave, who was basically this young man, and going on all sorts of adventures. And the most famous chapter, and the whole novel has not survived. It's only in like bits and pieces, reported in other sources. But the most famous episode is this chapter called Tremalkio's Feast, where these two Romans and their slave go to this feast by this free man Tremalkio. And because he's kind of nouveau riche, he has like a super elaborate feast because he just like, he doesn't spend his money in a classy way. He spends it in just like a super elaborate self-serving way. And he does like, and he serves 100-year-old Falernian wine. And he like, and he's got like 20 courses and after dinner, he gets in a coffin and he makes all the dinner guests line up and say nice things about him and pretend that it's his funeral. And it is absolutely fucking bonkers. I don't know if it's quite as abstract or as artsy as Horses Love Stegosauruses, but it definitely, because it's definitely making like a bit of a satirical kind of social commentary point about, you know, just the new rich or whatever. But it very much has that kind of style of just like, what the fuck? Just like
I wonder if there was like just wild stuff like that going down all the time. Like the wildest part about that is getting in a coffin and making people say nice things about you. And I wonder, like, just before all this stuff to distract us, just how much absolutely bonkers stuff people did all the time just to pass an hour. Like, oh, I'm gonna get in a coffin. You come say nice things about me. So many imagination games and stuff, so much make believe.
Although, you know, I mean, I do think, I mean, you know, in terms of, well, we don't want to make like the mistake of necessarily thinking that, you know, just because people didn't have, you know, TV or even like couldn't read, that they didn't have sort of necessarily anything to do. But yeah, it is sort of interesting to think about like just sort of how people filled their free time or whatever. Cause you know, I would imagine that there's a certain sort of time and place, maybe like 200 or 300 years ago, where a lot of people could read, but, you know, there wasn't really and might have had kind of free time. Like maybe most people weren't just like doing backbreaking labor all the time, you know, specifically thinking like, I don't know, like 18th, 19th century, where there are like books to read and there's like stuff and there's like plays to see and there's stuff to do, but it's not quite like, you know, 20th century where it's just like CBS, NBC, you know, and then 21st century, like Twitter, Facebook, just like the bombarding of like of content that we have now and we've had for, you know, 100 years or so, where like there would be, where sort of, I guess, you know, you would have maybe 2 or 3 books maybe that you like really liked and that you'd read kind of over and over. And it's sort of interesting to think about how people in like the early 19th century would have like huge long passages of like Ovid or whatever, like memorized, you know, and could like recite this stuff just because, you know, you had like a handful of books that you just like read up over and over again. And, you know, and obviously for a lot of people that was the Bible and stuff. And they just, I guess, know the Bible really well. And so, you know, they would sort of mix their leisure time with, in terms of, and their sort of, they would mix their kind of consumption of entertainment also with their sort of spiritual lives. And because, you know, the Bible is nothing if not entertaining. I mean, it is a legitimately it's a rip roaring book. It is highly entertaining. So yeah, it is interesting to think, you know, this sounds very sort of millennial-y but yeah, it is interesting thinking about how just in our, just these days where we just like have just so much just like vying for our attention, so many programs, so many videos, so many posts. It's just sort of interesting thinking about how people in the past would have like faced that problem of like, oh, what do I want to do with my free time? Because we don't have to worry about it really if we have an internet connection. I'm sorry, say what?
I think there would have been a lot of party games. Like, I feel like if I go to a party in this time, I would be surprised actually if there was a party game, probably. And yet, I know this is not like the most like historically accurate depiction of the past, but when you see depictions of, like you say, the 18th century, and there's a party or something going down, there's like organized dances, which I've literally is not going to go down in any party I've ever been to. People are legitimately playing like hide and seek, like grown adults are running around playing hide and seek.
To be fair, that sounds fucking awesome.
In their huge mazes that they've grown because they have nothing else to do other than focus on their gardening. But yeah, I bet there's crazy party games in different times. I think we're missing out on that content.
Yeah. We are missing out on that. Actually, it's funny you should mention that, Stefan, because I'm on vacation right now, and I came here for a wedding that was last week or so. It was like a week or two ago, and I went to a party and people played party games.
Yeah,
it was interesting. We legitimately, like, some guy who I'd never met before just kind of like took charge and was like, and you know, it was a bunch of people like at a wedding. We all knew the bride and groom, but like we didn't know each other. And so, you know, it was kind of just like, oh, you seem cool and you're kind of my age, you know, like let's meet at the fucking, you know, beach and like have a party or whatever. So we're like drinking beers on the beach. And some guy just like took charge and was like, let's have a party game. And it was delightful, Stefan. It was lovely. It was so much fun. And it's great when you just like don't really know many people there, and you know, they're just kind of shooting the shit with strangers, getting to know people. It was actually very, very fun. But anyway, let's see a couple of, I think there's a couple more super chats that have come in. Johnny says, I like how, first of all, I like how this was supposed to be kind of a big joke, and then we legitimately started talking about the history of content creation and consumption. And in our own little precious millennial way of like, how did people in the past ever be entertained?
What did they do? They didn't have TikTok.
They didn't have Twitter, you know. But it is an interesting question. But yeah, as soon as I said it, I was like immediately self-conscious about it. I was like, I sound like every millennial ever. So Johnny says, what do you think of examples of combinations of history and content creation, like the Anna Commoneness Aeneid? I don't know anything about that. And the theory behind Homer's Iliad and Odyssey being a long song. I don't know what you're talking about there, Johnny. That is very far outside my purview. Do you have any insight about that, Stefan?
I don't really know specifically what you're on about.
Yeah.
But
what you on about?
What you on about? But I do believe that a lot of these classical stories would have been sung originally. If we went back to a party in ancient Greece, someone would get their like lyre out or what have you, and I think these poems would be sung. There is actually a YouTuber whose name I've forgotten. She's a real archaeologist, studies the history of music, and speaks classical Greek, and performs these songs, like performs the Odyssey and plays the music and sings them in classical Greek, and all of this.
That sounds awesome.
Maybe my name.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I mean, I've definitely seen like YouTube musicians doing, you know, the Epic of Gilgamesh and Sumerian and stuff, and that's absolutely wonderful. You know, it's so cool. But no, I mean, you know, I wasn't, you know, again, not my area of expertise, but wasn't Beowulf, you know, originally a song? You know, wasn't like the sort of performance included singing and all that.
Yeah. If anyone's interested, that woman is called Bettina Joy de Guzman. Bettina Joy de Guzman. You can find her stuff if you just type Bettina Greek music in Google. And yeah, she performs those like things properly in classical Greek and stuff.
Oh man, that sounds awesome. Yeah, well, I know what I'm doing when we hop off here.
Next party game. Hey, check this out, guys.
All right, everybody. So crack open your beers. We're gonna learn how to sing the Iliad in classical Greek. Are you ready?
Yeah.
That'll go over well. Well, cool. I think we have. I mean, you know, we did it. We've done it. It was under a crisp 2 hours. We went over the entire history of human content creation from 3 million years ago with those fucking pebbles to horses love stegosauruses. I think we accomplished the impossible. We accomplished what everyone said we wouldn't be able to do, Stefan. I told everyone Stefan and I are going to cover the entire human history of content creation, and people said it can't be done. It won't be done. I don't believe in you, and I think we showed them. We proved them wrong tonight.
I think unironically we did a bang up job. Like, okay, we covered a lot.
Yeah, I hope
cover a lot.
Yeah, I'm. Yeah. Well, should we? I guess let's wrap it up because we did cover quite a bit, and I think it was a great success. I hope everybody had fun. Did you guys have fun? Tell me in the chat if you had fun. Tell me.
I wish I could see the chat. I should.
Oh, you can't. Oh, good. Somebody says I stand here in awe. Somebody said no. D's nuts said no. So you know what? I don't need you, D's nuts. Well, anyway, in all seriousness, I think we will wrap it up here. But I am really happy that we did this, Stefan, and I certainly had a lot of fun. And yeah, I mean, if you guys watching had half as much fun as we did making this brief history of content, then we enjoyed it twice as much as you. So anyway, any final thoughts, Stefan?
Nah. I said okay. All that can be said about hashtag content.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next live stream, which is going to happen whenever I feel like it, with another celebrity guest. Anyway, appreciate you guys. Good night.